Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day to watch my video. I really do appreciate it. You don't know how much I do appreciate you watching my videos. Today I want to talk about my top November baits. What I will have tied on every time I go to the lake in November. Especially this November. I mean, today's October the 28th and it's 80 something degrees outside. We hadn't had rain in 2 months. It's hot, so the water's still really hot. Don't have any cool down in sight really. I think the lowest I seen was highs in the low 70s and low temperatures in the 50s for the next 2 weeks. So we're still in for some warm weather and warm water. But these would be the baits that I would use this time of year anyway. So without further ado, let's get into it. First and foremost, I'll be throwing a True Faith custom bait buzz bait. Top water action is great this time of year. Buzz bait works really good because they're feeding on a lot of shad. I catch a lot of fish on a buzz bait. I get up there on shallow flatter banks with deeper water close to them, but shallower flat banks with some cover on it, boat docks, brush, lay down stumps, rock piles, anything, or big boulders. Throw that buzz bait up there against the bank, and you want to put it on the bank because sometimes if you land 1 foot to 2 foot out from the bank, you're landing right on top of the fish because they'll be dirt by golly shallow this time of year. So put it on the bank and drag it off of there, and if you can, either 45 degree, fish at a 45 degree angle, or if you're fishing with a partner and he wants to come up there with you, just parallel that bank. After you figure out how far off the bank they are, how deep they are, parallel that bank and throw that buzz bait. And this time of year you can throw that sucker all day and catch some good ones. A couple of buddies of mine using True Faith custom bait buzz baits caught almost 20 pounds, is 19 point something pounds of bass on Beaver Lake this past Saturday to win the tournament. So anyway, throw that buzz bait. I throw it on a 7 to 7'3" rod with anywhere from 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon, and the rod's medium to medium heavy, and whatever reel you prefer. My second choice is going to be a True Faith custom bait spinner bait. That spinner bait, fishing at the same locations as I did that buzz bait, on the exact same setup as I did the buzz bait. Throw it around cover, throw it around boat docks. As long as you're throwing that spinner bait around, you'll catch some fish. I like to burn it this time of year. Get you a 3/8 ounce or maybe even a 1/4 ounce spinner bait and burn it. Get the smaller blade, get a spinner bait with smaller blades and burn that thing just a couple of inches under the water. If you see some bait fish flopping up out of the water, make your blades plop up out of the water some. That'll look like those bait fish jumping out of the water, and they'll come up there and nail it. Throw that spinner bait across points, long tapering points. You may be in 20 foot of water and burning that spinner bait, but those bass will come up there out of 20 foot of water and nail that spinner bait, especially if you're in a clear lake like Beaver Lake, Table Rock, Bull Shoals, 10 Killer, over here in the area that I'm in. You can flat tear the old fish up throwing those spinner baits on up there and cross points and on flats, and run that thing just a couple inches under the water. the next bait that I'll be throwing will be the old swim jig, True Faith Custom Bait swim jig. Be throwing it around any kind of cover, boat docks, lay downs, stumps, standing timber, any of that. That's where I'll be throwing that swim jig, and I'll be throwing it on the exact same setup as I do the spinnerbait and buzzbait. Well, yeah, exact same thing. Next thing that I will have tied on is, as soon as I find it, where's that? Is the rock crawler. This is crankbait time. Rock crawler. I'll be throwing that rock crawler. This time of year, it's hard to beat the rock crawler. You can throw the wigglewort. You can throw the wigglewort too, but I catch more fish on a rock crawler than I do wigglewort, so that's the reason I prefer the rock crawler. A lot of people prefer that wigglewort, but I prefer the rock crawler. I'll be throwing it on flatter banks, around rock piles. I don't throw it around too much around brush, just a whole lot, but I will throw it around some brush, especially if that's where the fish are at. I'll still throw the crankbait around the brush, but for the most part, I'm just targeting rock piles, big rocks, transition areas where, say, you're on a channel swing and where the bluff ends, you got a transition where it transitions from bluff to bigger rock or smaller rock or pea gravel, whatever it transitions to. Most time it's a bluff and then some bigger rock down to the pea gravel, is what you have in a lot of the lakes around here. So hit that transition point and hit them rocks with that crankbait, either a crawdad or shad colored crankbait. What dang wind has got acorns falling all over me. Anyway, just keep that crankbait in your hand this time of year. I've had some awesome days over at Lake Tenkiller around Thanksgiving, even all the way into the end of November. Flat tore them up on a crankbait over there. So keep in mind, especially if this warm weather holds out for much longer, that water will still be warm enough to throw that crankbait. And that buzzbait, a lot of people don't think about throwing a buzzbait in 50-degree water. I've caught bass all the way down to 46, 47-degree water throwing a buzzbait. You want to throw a bigger blade. I think I got one. Yeah, here's one. Here's a True Faith Custom Bait buzzbait with the bigger blade on it, and you can throw that buzzbait, that bigger blade, and just barely reel it, just barely fast enough to keep that blade hitting the top of the water, just plop, plop, plop. And you may not catch many bass that day, but you'll catch quality bass. You'll have a 20-pound bag at the end of the day. All these days I've been talking about throwing a spinnerbait, buzzbait, swim jig, crankbait. I have better success on cloudier days. If it's raining or snowing, I don't see any snow in the forecast, that's for sure. And unfortunately, we've got some rain in the forecast here in the next, either in 2 days we have some, and again over the weekend we have 3 or 4 days worth of rain coming in, I think. And we need it. Like I said, we hadn't had any for a couple months, and it is bad dry. But anyway, if you have overcast days, cloudy days, rainy days, those baits work amazing in those conditions. I mean, I've seen it too. Before a front hits, you can keep that buzz bait and your spinner bait in your hand all day. Spinner bait and crankbait is better if you have just a little bit of wind. You'll have better luck if you got some wind when you're throwing that spinner bait and crankbait. But I've had days on dead calm days throwing that buzz bait and still catching them. But I usually have a lot better luck catching them on spinner bait and crankbait if there's some wind. Another bait that I will have tied on is a soft jerk bait. This one's the caffeine shad from Strike King. I really like that caffeine shad. I've caught a lot of fish on a caffeine shad, and I've also caught a ton of fish on the Zoom. My mind's going blank. Super Fluke. The old Zoom Super Fluke. Caught a ton of fish on those. So whichever you prefer, there's other brands out there. They catch fish. They catch a lot of fish too. So whatever brand you prefer, just make sure you have you a soft jerk bait tied on. You'll put it on a Texas rig, usually weightless, and I'll put a swivel about 14-15 inches out in front of it, because these things will make your line twist, and if you're throwing it on a spinning rod, you will have a freaking mess on that spinning reel in just a little bit if you don't have a swivel on there to keep that line from twisting. And that little old swivel that I put on there, I'll have my main line come down, tie that swivel on, have a 12 to 15 inch leader to my hook, tie that leader on to that swivel, Texas rig that, and go to town. If they're up high in the water column, twitch it high in the water column. If you see them chasing shad, throw it up there and jerk it a few times, and if they don't come and hit it in the first 4 or 5 twitches, just start jerking real hard and make that thing go crazy and can jump up out of the water. And I promise you, they'll come up there and hit it. You're making that thing jump up out of the water and dart like a freaking crazy fish. They will see that and they cannot resist coming up there and investigating that. That works on clear days, cloudy days, windy days, rainy days, snowy days, whatever. It doesn't matter. But have your jerk bait tied on. Now for those clear, calm days that you can't get them to bite anything, that's when the True Faith custom bait jig comes into play. Get you a True Faith custom bait jig. This one's a 3/4 ounce. I probably wouldn't need that. I'd probably go to a 1/2 ounce or 3/8, because this is my summertime throwing out there in 20 to 40 foot of water. But get you a True Faith custom bait jig, and say a 1/2 ounce, and go to work crawling that jig. And it's hard to beat a Living Rubber Brown True Faith custom bait jig. True Faith custom bait makes all kinds of jigs. They make hair jigs, they make rubber jigs, they make the silicone skirted jigs. So just get you a True Faith custom bait jig and start dragging that jig across the bottom, anywhere from the bank all the way out to 20 foot deep, and put on your favorite trailer, your craw trailer, and let that jig go to work for you. And I fish that. Well, the crankbait I fish on a 7'3" medium heavy rod, 10-pound fluorocarbon, and whatever reel that you prefer. The jig, 7 to 7'3", medium heavy to heavy action rod. Depends what kind of cover I'm flipping into or pulling that jig through. And I'll have 15 to 20 pound test fluorocarbon line on it. This jerk bait, I usually fish it on 10 or 12 pound test fluorocarbon. 7-foot rod, 7'3" rod, medium heavy. It doesn't matter if I'm fishing it on a casting reel or a spinning reel. And last but not least, on those tough condition days, high bluebird skies, you can't get a bite on nothing. Sorry about that, guys. That dumb magnet came off the back of my phone. Okay, back at it. That little bitty 2.75 tube is going to be one of your best friends. Get you a tube, little tube. True Faith Custom Bait tube head. That little morsel right there will catch every fish in the freaking lake. May not be the big ones, but you will catch a lot of dang fish, I will promise you, because they are not used to seeing a little tube. There's not very many people fishes a tube anymore, especially a small one like that. So if you're having trouble catching a fish, break out a tube and see what happens. Well, those are my top baits for November. And for those days that they'll hit a moving bait and you can power fish, get those power fishing baits that I just showed you. Get out there on the water and you can have you a fun day. But anyway, if you have any questions or want any more tips on anything else, please leave a note below. And I'll be fishing those tubes on 6 or 8 pound test fluorocarbon line, medium light rod, 7 foot or 7'3" or so, and whatever spinning reel you prefer. But anyway, I got to get off of here and get ready to go pick kids up from school. I'm sitting out here in the boat today, getting some things put back up. So anyway, if you have any questions, please feel to give me a message below, and I will see you guys out on the water. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Thank you. May God bless you all, and have a great day.